On the 14th of August 1967, a heavy wooden vessel named the Gudrun battled 60-knot gales just 4 miles off the jagged, black sand southern coast of Iceland. Inside its reinforced hull, stowed securely away from the freezing spray of the North Atlantic, sat 24 custom-built timber crates, each secured with steel tension bands. The crew had been ordered to maintain absolute radio silence regarding their cargo, a directive originating directly from the highest officers in Reykjavik. As the vessel pitched violently against the crests of 12-meter waves, the captain adjusted his course toward a newly formed, smouldering volcanic island that the world had only recently named Surtsey. The men on board knew they were carrying something that could fundamentally alter the fragile terrestrial ecology of their nation, but the true nature of what lay locked within those trembling crates remained a closely guarded secret. What transpired across the subsequent decades was an ecological event that absolutely no one predicted, a development that stunned international researchers and initiated a debate that scientists continue to dissect in specialized academic journals to this day. The narrative of this northern landscape defied every established rule of modern conservation biology. My name is Julian Vance, and this is the full arc of Iceland's 30-year isolation. By the time this narrative concludes, you will understand 3 precise things. First, the hidden vulnerability of volcanic topsoil that forced a government to enact the most stringent land ban in modern European history. Second, the biological mechanism through which an entirely prohibited industry inadvertently triggered a massive ecological resurrection. And third, how the intentional absence of human intervention can achieve restoration results that billions of dollars in active engineering could never replicate. But to understand this radical environmental transformation, you have to start with something entirely unexpected: the microscopic architecture of subarctic volcanic ash. For centuries, the global scientific community viewed the Icelandic interior as a barren, inhospitable desert, a wasteland incapable of supporting complex life. However, a landmark paper published in the journal Ecological in 1982 demonstrated that this seemingly dead volcanic substrate possesses a highly specialized crystalline structure. This specific molecular arrangement allows the soil to retain microscopic pockets of moisture, even during profound periods of prolonged sub-zero freezing. This makes the subterranean layer a highly sensitive, volatile canvas. In these extreme northern latitudes, the true pioneers of life are not magnificent mammals or towering trees, but rather humble mosses and lichens, specifically the species Rhacomitrium lanuginosum. This resilient organism acts as an essential ecosystem engineer, a vital keystone species that stabilizes the shifting black sands and slowly, across centuries, converts raw volcanic basalt into fertile, life-giving soil. For more than a millennium, this delicate biological crust functioned as the foundational shield of the entire island, preventing the fierce, relentless Atlantic winds from stripping the land down to its naked skeletal bedrock. The entire equilibrium of the island depended on a layer of vegetation that was less than 3 centimeters thick. But that is not what happened. As human settlement expanded and industrial demands intensified during the mid-20th century, a massive, unyielding pressure was placed upon this fragile northern frontier. The delicate crust of moss, which required more than 100 years to recover from even minor physical disruptions, was suddenly subjected to relentless mechanical and biological exploitation. Large-scale operations began fracturing the ancient ground, ripping open the protective green mantle and exposing the highly volatile volcanic ash underneath to the brutal subarctic elements. Within less than 2 decades, vast swathes of the Icelandic interior were transformed into swirling dust bowls, as millions of tons of irreplaceable topsoil were swept violently into the cold northern ocean. The government faced an unprecedented ecological catastrophe. If the erosion continued at this current, accelerated trajectory, the island would become entirely uninhabitable within 2 generations. Realizing that conventional conservation methods were utterly inadequate for a crisis of this magnitude, the Parliament in Reykjavik made a radical, highly controversial decision. they completely banned an entire foundational industry from entering the interior zones of the country, legally sealing off thousands of square kilometers of land from any form of commercial exploitation for a strict period of 30 years. The gates to the heart of Iceland were locked, the machinery was silenced, and the territory was abandoned to the elements. Yet, as the final human footprints faded from the black sands, nobody expected what came after. For the first 10 years of the Great Ban, the restricted zones appeared completely stagnant, remaining as silent, grey, and seemingly lifeless as the surface of the moon. Scientists who monitored the perimeter fences noted that without active human intervention, without the planting of non-native trees or the artificial distribution of fertilizers, the scarred earth showed absolutely no visible signs of recovery. The fierce winter blizzards continued to carve deep, jagged ravines into the exposed hillsides, and many prominent agricultural experts publicly declared that the 30-year ban was a monumental failure, an empty political gesture that was merely prolonging the inevitable desertification of the island. They argued that nature, when left entirely to its own devices in such an unforgiving climate, lacked the inherent power to heal wounds of this magnitude. The public grew restless, and economic interests began lobbying aggressively to reopen the prohibited zones for immediate industrial exploitation, arguing that the locked land was a wasted resource that could be generating substantial national wealth. The entire preservation experiment teetered on the brink of total collapse, as the pressure to repeal the conservation laws became nearly overwhelming for the governing coalition. What the critics failed to realize, however, was that deep beneath the frozen, battered surface, a silent, invisible process was beginning to unfold, a slow molecular gathering of strength that was completely hidden from the human eye. But the true catalyst for change required an extraordinary spark. And here is where the story turns on a piece of pure luck. In the late spring of 1978, an elderly researcher named Dr. Christian Magnusson was conducting a routine, authorized soil sampling expedition along the southern boundary of the exclusion zone when his all-terrain vehicle suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure. Stranded miles from the nearest outpost with a fractured axle, he was forced to seek temporary shelter from an incoming Arctic gale inside a deep, naturally formed basalt crater. As he waited out the storm, huddled against the freezing stone wall, his flashlight illuminated a small, sheltered crevice near the base of the cavern. There, growing in the absolute darkness, was a single, vibrant green specimen of Lupinus nootkatensis, an exotic perennial plant that had been introduced to the island decades prior, but was widely believed to be incapable of surviving the harsh, unassisted conditions of the wild interior. The plant had not been placed there by human hands. Its seed had been carried miles by the wind, finding refuge in the one microclimate where the destructive gales could not reach it. Dr. Magnusson realized that this single, accidental introduction possessed a unique biological property. It was a nitrogen-fixing powerhouse, capable of drawing vital nutrients directly from the atmosphere and depositing them into the sterile volcanic ash. This chance encounter changed the entire trajectory of Icelandic conservation science. Would this single, isolated species be enough to alter the fate of an entire country? This unexpected discovery introduced a profound new dimension to the narrative, one that extended far beyond the immediate concerns of soil erosion and agricultural preservation. It touched upon a deeply rooted, historical trauma within the collective memory of the Icelandic people. For 1,000 years, since the arrival of the first Viking settlers, the inhabitants of this isolated island had engaged in a brutal, unending struggle for survival against an environment that seemed determined to erase them. The collective memory was filled with stories of devastating famines, volcanic winters, and the slow, agonizing loss of the island's original ancient birch forests, which had been completely cleared within a few centuries of human arrival. To the average citizen, the barren interior was not just a scientific problem, it was a physical manifestation of scarcity, a constant, ominous reminder of how close their civilization lived to the edge of complete extinction. The 30-year ban was therefore viewed by many as an existential gamble, a test of whether the human inhabitants of Iceland could truly coexist with their landscape, or whether they were destined to permanently destroy the very foundation of their survival. The stakes were no longer merely ecological, they were cultural, historical, and deeply personal. The nation watched the boundaries of the forbidden land with a mixture of hope and profound anxiety, wondering if they had acted too late to save their ancestral home. But the biggest surprise was still to come. As the second decade of the total prohibition drew to a close, the isolated interior underwent a transformation so profound, so sudden, and so visually spectacular that it fundamentally redefined the global understanding of ecological resilience. The hidden work of the microscopic lichens, combined with the rapid natural proliferation of the nitrogen-fixing lupin, reached a critical biological tipping point. The vast, silent expanses of black volcanic dust, which had been grey and dead for generations, were suddenly overtaken by an immense, rolling sea of deep purple and vibrant green. The numbers recorded by the aerial survey teams were staggering. Over a period of just 48 months, more than 12,000 hectares of previously barren desert were colonized by native vegetation. The shifting sands were completely stabilized by a dense, interlocking matrix of roots that anchored the soil firmly to the bedrock. The profound silence that had characterized the interior for 30 years was broken by the rushing sounds of newly formed freshwater springs, filtered through the thick, regenerative carpet of moss and plant life. Streams that had been choked with toxic black silt for decades ran crystal clear, filled with thousands of native Arctic char that migrated inland from the sea to spawn in areas that had been completely dry within living memory. Insects, long absent from the blasted landscape, returned by the millions, their buzzing wings creating a continuous, vibrant hum that echoed across the newly formed meadows. Birds followed the insects, with thousands of golden plovers and whimbrels nesting in the lush, protective foliage, their complex calls transforming the once empty wilderness into a grand, natural amphitheatre of sound. The land had not merely recovered, it had been completely reborn, transitioning from a state of broken stillness to a magnificent, roaring symphony of diverse biological life. This extraordinary event demonstrated that when the heavy, disruptive hand of human industry is entirely removed, the natural world possesses an ancient, inherent intelligence, a profound capacity for self-repair that operates on a timescale far grander than our own short-term economic calculations. The 30-year ban proved that the greatest gift humanity can offer to a dying ecosystem is sometimes not our advanced technology or our intensive management, but rather our complete, disciplined absence. The scarred volcanic wastes of Iceland, once considered a permanent monument to human greed and environmental ruin, became a global beacon of ecological hope, showing that no landscape is truly beyond redemption if it is given the time and the absolute freedom to heal itself. In the quiet, restored valleys of the Icelandic interior, where the purple flowers now dance softly in the cold Atlantic wind, the earth remembers a time before the machines arrived, and it whispers a profound lesson to the generations who will inherit this fragile planet. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children, and the greatest legacy we can leave them is a landscape that still knows how to live without us. What are your thoughts on Iceland's radical approach to environmental restoration? If you found this historical journey compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel for more deep explorations of our planet's hidden narratives. My name is Julian Vance, and thank you for listening.